Hello everybody, my name is Jenny. You have found my channel called Reality TV Breakdown. I'm glad you did. It's a new channel. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. If you can take a moment right now just to hit the subscribe button, the like button, and at the end of this video, leave me a comment, even if it's just to say hello. I read every single comment.
Welcome to my castle. Amidst this world of bloodshed, I am your humble narrator. So step inside, stay a while in the company of the traitor.
Today we are talking about The Traitors, episode 8. Oh, each one is better than the one before. And each one ends with me dying to see the next one. So if any of you are watching this after the whole series is over, you are so lucky that you can just binge it. Kills me that I have to wait a whole week. But since it takes me like 5 days to get the videos out, I guess it's a good thing. There'd be no recap videos if I could just sit there and binge the whole thing in a day. I'd just do a whole, this is the series of Traitors. So let's enjoy it. So we open up with breakfast again.
People for sure that I would be the one murdered, but maybe even the traitors want to keep me because I think people trust me in this castle. They shouldn't trust me. I would throw any of them in the moat in a second for $10.
So who do you think?
People coming down to breakfast. Everybody's pretty convinced it's either going to be Bergie or Trishelle who's gone, which makes sense. I said that at the end of my last video, I'm pretty sure. But the more I think about it, the more I think we really need to get Trishelle out because she's the only one that's really strategizing and she's on to people. They don't know she's on to them, but she is a big brother player. Like she's done strategy stuff before. Bergie was on Love Island. And from his interviews, I'm getting the impression he may not have been that good at it. Like he was pretty manipulated on Love Island. So Bergie's not a threat to anybody in this game. And if Parvati wants to get rid of Bergie, it would behoove Phaedra to convince her otherwise because Phaedra knows that Bergie's on her side and Bergie's convinced she's a faithful. So Phaedra should really make a case for why Trishelle is more of a threat. I don't think these people are thinking on this show. It just drives me nuts. Because as everyone came down, eventually we realized who got voted out? Bergie! Wrong answer, people. It should not be Bergie. So Peter's really upset because that was his best friend on the show. And he wanted to take him to the end, which is kind of how it would go. He'd be taking him along with them to the end. Oh, I'm so disappointed. And then they cut back and they show in the turret the whole conversation with them and how Parvati said, I think I'm going to go with Bergie. And Phaedra's like, that's what you want. That's all Phaedra's done this whole time. I'm starting to get disappointed in her. She's a smart lawyer woman who seems like she could also be kind of conniving in her own personal life. Like this game should be right in her wheelhouse. Yet she has been letting Dan and Parvati do all the moves in the turret. And they have not been making good decisions. And because of it, Dan throws her under the bus, intentionally or not. I said in his interview, that's not what he intended to do and all that. I can't logically understand why he would throw Phaedra under the bus otherwise. It just still doesn't make his sense. His answer doesn't make sense. So, all right, let's go on. We have a video of Bergie reflecting on his time there.
By order of the traitors, you have been murdered. Signed, the traitors. I think I played the best game I could ever play. Coming in, I was really nervous. I've learned more about myself. I'm able to handle confrontation better. I got to show I'm someone that can't be manipulated. I think the traitors knew that, and I would have taken down everyone else with me.
Oh, Bergie, I don't think you're going to be making any great moves or doing anything, but that's good. I'm glad you think that, Bergie. Now I've written down, Trishelle is, of course, really on Phaedra's trail. Oh. And she's adding to her arguments that she has a twitch in her eye. And apparently, according to Trishelle, she's a poker player and she can look at tells and that's her tell. So I guess according to her, the twitch only happens when she's lying. And Kevin, bless his heart, when she goes to tell him about this, when the Faithful Five get together in the room, you mentioned it, Kevin's like, yes, I've seen that. You know what? Have you seen Phaedra's lashes? She can barely open her eyes at times. They're so squid. They're so long and heavy. And that I think the twitch is the heaviness of the latch because of the weight of these latches. I do not think it's a tell. Whatever. Trishelle also points out to her friends that Phaedra is never talking strategy with anybody. Another Dan. How come none of these traitors know how to be traitors? Had none of them watched the previous season, I think if I would have been told I'm going to be on the show, I would have watched how the previous season went down. Not these people. Trishelle convinces Peter, who was against it at first, but eventually he came around. She convinces him to talk to Parvati and get her to vote against Phaedra. This is the first time we finally see a traitor go against a traitor. I could not understand why Dan didn't go after Parvati before. I think he would have survived that vote on the week that he got voted out. Now, I still don't think he would have really understood the gravity of his situation. He probably would have been voted out the next week, but I do think he would have made it another week if he would have thrown Parvati under the bus, who was on everybody's radar, instead of some random Phaedra. So dumb. I can't get over that. Can you tell? I can't get over that. So in the kitchen, we have Parvati and Peter talking with each other. And I feel like they're both playing each other. They're both saying, yeah, let's be on each other's side. Let's, I don't know if I believe either one of them. But Parvati points out this is the only hand she has to turn against Phaedra, is her only chance of moving on in the game, because she knows she's going to get voted out that night. So you cut to Phaedra, and she's clueless. She has no idea that Parvati's doing this, or that Parvati would ever turn on her. I don't know why. But Phaedra has no idea that her name is being circled around this entire episode. We get to the challenge. I have a lot of notes on the challenge this time. Sometimes it's very quick. I'll try to make this as brief as possible for those of you, because I know some of you who watch this write in the comments that you actually don't watch the episodes, or you don't even have access to the episodes, which just shocks me. That anyway, I just don't get a lot of these streaming platforms. They're so stupid how people don't get access to things that they're supposed to. It's not right. But anyway, so for those of you who have not seen the episode at all, the challenge is they're all taken to this remote cabin out in the woods. They're told to all go inside of it. It's decorated special for them. They go inside, they get locked in. They're told they have 30 minutes to escape. Each person that doesn't make it out under the 30-minute period of time, they lose $1,000. All right, right now they have no money, but maybe they have to get money back if they get no money. So they have to find their way out, and there's gold hidden along the way. They eventually realize that underneath this was kind of like a, what are those called? Those escape rooms, like an escape room. They're looking all around for clues and ways to get out. They realize that underneath the set table and the tablecloth, there's a map. The map shows the tunnels that are underground that they can go through to find the gold. It shows where the gold is listed in the different tunnels and how to get out. And to get out, you go back up through the well. This was a gross challenge. This is the one that made me think, yeah, I don't know if I'd want to be on this show. It was, first of all, I'm semi-claustrophobic. And so to crawl in dark tunnels like this, it gets really complicated. They find on the map that through the closet in the back door, there's a trap to get into the tunnels to start going around. But the tunnels are completely dark. They found a switch inside the cabin that if somebody holds the switch, it turns the lights on in the tunnels. However, when the lights are on in the tunnels, it's perfectly dark in the cabin. So nobody can do anything in the cabin. Well, there's nothing to really do in the cabin besides be on the walkie-talkie and explain to them, turn right, turn left. If you found there's gold this way, because the map is glued down to the table that's in there. So they do have walkie-talkies with them as they're going down there. So these walkie-talkies, that's all they need. So the majority of the time they could have the lights on in the tunnels for them. But they keep letting it go off, because up in the cabin, when they hit the lights for the tunnel and it goes dark in the cabin, they start shooting out what it seems like is urine Somebody said it smelled like urine and it smelled really bad, and somebody else said it's urine, so maybe it was urine. Shooting at them from like different holes in the wall and that. I don't know exactly. It's hard to tell because it's dark in there. And then randomly there's trap doors where they'll dump things on top of them too, specifically bugs, live bugs. Kate figured this out right away. Smart little cookie, Kate. She was on the lights initially, and she's like, oh, I'll control the lights. And she's waiting for people to start getting into tunnels and go, and she looks up and she sees what looks like a trap door above her, and she knows something's coming on top of her, and she just went, oh, yeah, no, I don't know if I want this job. Here's a clip.
So I'm holding down the lights, and I look up, and I see what could look like a trap door. Oh, God, I don't want to do this job.
Why not?
You do this job. I think you're going to be real good at these lights. I think you're going to like this job, Kevin.
I can't be the last one to go.
I'm not doing that job.
Now, during this time, anyone in the house, and I mean, the tunnels, you could just find your way to get out through the well. But if you're in the house, maybe, I don't know. The only people who took advantage of it were people who were back in the house. But you could yell the word haggis, which is that gross food that they eat in London, which I shouldn't say it's gross if you live in London and you're used to eating it. Or is it Ireland? Well, they're in Scotland, so maybe it's a more Irish, Scottish kind of thing. I think just in general in Europe they eat haggis, which is like pork intestines or something. I can't remember. Anyway, to Americans it smells disgusting. So anyway, that's the code word to get out. So if you say haggis, haggis, they'll let you out. They'll unlock the door and let you out. And MJ, she's the first out of there. After the first time that bugs fell on somebody, she was like, haggis, 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 get me out of here. So she was out. So they were going to be $1,000 less. Meanwhile, half of the team is still in through the tunnels, crawling around, searching for gold. And a lot of them had like obstacles to get to it. Like the gold would be somewhere, but you have to do this puzzle to get it up and get it out, or you have to tear through wire. The one piece, there was a shield, actually. There was a shield, and it was inside this area covered in rotten food and rats everywhere. And you had to go in there and get it out. Oh, so gross. The next time the lights go out in the cabin, something else gets dropped on them. I know Kevin was the one on the lights then. He got covered in bugs. And at this point, Phaedra was like, haggis, 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 I'm out of here. In the tunnels underground, that shield that I was telling you about, CT, I think, noticed it at first, but went ahead and told Trishelle to go ahead and get it because he knew that she needed it. And of course, she felt like their friendship is solidified and bonded again. I'm like, great, Trishelle has a shield. Well, I guess we have to go for Peter. Of course, no one will know that Trishelle has a shield because as they're starting to crawl out, CT sees John there, and John asks what's going on. He said, Trishelle has a shield. Don't say this to anybody. So CT is really playing both sides. It really starting to bother me because I love him. I wanted him to win, and maybe he will win with this strategy, but I don't want him to throw the non-faithful 5 people under the bus. I want him to be on that team. I want him to be the solo man who survives and eventually picks them all off one by one. So I wrote down that this makes me really angry because now it looks like Peter's convinced Parvati to vote their way, and now it looks like CT's kind of on their side. So they lost 1 player, but they gained 2. So they're the faithful 6 now. Well, this continues to go on and on and on. And one by one, the people who are in the cabin are done with the urine and the bugs being spewed at them every time the lights go out. And Kate eventually says, haggis, 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 get me out of here. And Sheree says, haggis, 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 get me out of here. Both of them kind of at the same time. They were gone. So now we have 4 people who have left. So there's $4,000 less in the pot based on how much gold is collected from down below.
Hold the lights. That's one job.
All right, let's go.
Hurry, players! You need to get that gold out of the well.
In the end, they collected $15,000 worth of gold. I think there was $20,000 down there, if I recall correctly. They collected $15,000, but they lose 4 for the 4 ladies who left, so $11,000 goes in the pot. Now we have a scene back at the castle. Parvati says she needs to convince John that she's still a faithful. Then they can vote for Phaedra, and this is her whole plan. So she goes in and sits down with John, and this is how it goes.
If I can put on a killer performance and convince John I'm a faithful, that might just be enough to get the suspicion off me and then for them to want to vote Phaedra. I'm realizing that, like, I think, like, what I've recognized is when I feel like I'm under attack, I just, like, become very icy and I wall off.
Oh, she goes on.
But I have just felt like because I trusted the wrong person, Dan, this target has just stuck to me when I feel like I'm under threat. I think it's just like a continuation of how I've been living and the things that I've been through for the past 2 years. Like, the only way I've gotten through that was, like,
tears.
Completely masking my emotions, and I'm just, like, doing the same thing here. So I don't think it's doing me any favors.
This is the first time that I have observed you so emotional.
John's buying it. And then,
For what it's worth, of all the people that I've met in this game, nobody reveals and displays greater guts and character than you do. And what you have to demonstrate is that you are a faithful player and that you wouldn't chop off my head.
I would never. I just put a little crack in his mind around me where he can think, maybe she's not a traitor after all. If I can get away with this, maybe I have a new career in acting.
oh, it doesn't look like Phaedra has a chance. Now we get to the round table at the end of the evening. Phaedra's completely unaware that the Faithful Five, who are now the Faithful Six or whatever they are planning on voting her out. They see her randomly walking around the castle going, where is everybody? And then eventually she gets in the room where they're all talking about voting her out and she just sits down. And they all start getting up and leaving and she's like, people are weird today. Oh, come on, Phaedra, pull it together. I wrote in my notes, this is the perfect time to get Peter out and everybody's talking about, do we want to do Parvati or Phaedra? What? So at the round table, we start off with Parvati pretty much pleading her case. Saying, listen, I've been closed off and all that. That's just because when I'm under fire and I'm falsely accused of things, I get quiet and I'm sorry, but, you know, I'm a faithful. Then Trishelle starts saying, well, I've been suspecting Phaedra. And Phaedra does her same reaction like she did with John, like, huh? Why me? Kevin jumps on the bandwagon when she explains the twitching eye thing. And he's like, yeah, I saw that too. Phaedra's like, I've never heard that before in my life. So they're going back and forth. And Trishelle is trying to say all the reasons that she thinks she acts weird at breakfast and all that. She's like, I don't act weird at breakfast. What are you talking about? So she's pretty much coming back at her, but like it wasn't a strong argument to begin with. And it's not a strong defense either. It's just sort of like banter back and forth. And then CT says, John, what do you think about all of this? So I'm thinking, okay, now John's going to pile on. John does not pile on. John turns on Parvati. He does.
I feel, it's just intuition, Parvati could well be a Duchess of Deception and a Mistress of Murder.
So that whole sit down where she's crying and he's like, oh, this is the first time I've seen you be vulnerable and thanks for sharing and all that. He was on to her.
I have heard what you have said in relation to Dan, but there is no doubt that you were his accomplice and he yours, and possibly his partner in crime. I have detected that you have been worried about banishment, but you have been, if you like, serene about the threat of murder. At the sacrifice ritual, people were given the opportunity to plead for their lives. You didn't. You chose to say nothing because you knew that you were not going to be murdered.
Politicians can smell out BS. Peter speaks up at the round table. He pretty much says he thinks it's Phaedra, and these are the same reasons why. Kate defends Phaedra, and they said Kate's one of her faithfuls, that they could have all the evidence right in front of Kate, and she'd be like, no. And her, Sheree, and one other person, MJ. They said the three of them would never vote for Phaedra. And Kate goes to Phaedra's defense and backs her up. And then we have to get to the vote. The vote, we do a little back and forth. We end up with 5 votes for Parvati to go. 4 votes for Phaedra to go. 2 votes left. If one more person votes for Parvati, then Parvati's out. We just need one of the 2 of them to vote for Parvati. CT is the next one to vote, and he votes for Parvati. I didn't realize after him we still had Kate. Kate would have voted for Parvati anyway. For some reason, I thought Peter hadn't voted yet at that point, because I'm like, oh no, it's CT and Peter, and they're both going to vote for Phaedra. Or definitely Peter will anyway, and it's up to CT now, but it all worked out fine. And what's even better about Parvati leaving, she gets up there and, you know, she does her little speech and says she's a traitor and says goodbye, and people are like, I knew it. Now in the house, conversations are starting to switch, and people are starting to be more suspicious of Peter. Maybe not like him as much. They're questioning his judgment in the things that he's saying, and I think they're starting to think he might be a traitor. Because at the round table, he's basically saying, I don't think Parvati is a traitor. I think it's Phaedra, and this is why. After an entire season leading up to this, 7 episodes, however long that is in shooting, of being convinced Parvati is the traitor and telling everybody we have to get her out, is now saying, yeah, I don't know if she is. And it came up that they were working together. Phaedra was able to share an opportunity that happened, which did it happen? I think it was this episode. Now, because it's been so many days since I watched it, I can't remember. There was a time when Peter thought, okay, I'm going to see about getting them on my side. And he had Parvati and Phaedra in this like wine cellar or something aside. And he's like, what do you think about maybe working together? And that's when Phaedra got up and was like, I'm out of here. I'm not comfortable. I think that was 2 episodes. I think it was the last episode. She's like, I'm not comfortable with any of this talk. I'm going to go. And then he continued talking to Parvati at that time. That was, I think, the previous episode. So Phaedra brings that up. She's like, listen, I don't know what's going on with you, but Peter, you are so wishy-washy now. You took me and Phaedra aside in a separate room and said, let's all work together. And I said, no way, my hands are clean, get me out of here. I don't want anything to do with this. And you stayed in there with Parvati working out things. So everyone else is like, oh, he did? He didn't tell me about that. What? Okay. So I'm starting to relax and enjoy myself a little bit more as I'm watching this, because I'm thinking we are all on to Peter now. Everyone's going to turn their sights on Peter and lay off of Phaedra. Maybe. I don't know. Trichelle's still in the game, and she's got to be in her bonnet when it comes to Phaedra. In a side room, we see Kevin talking to MJ, and Kevin is saying, something's up with Peter. I don't understand what it is. I'm just a little uncomfortable right now around him. Faithful Kevin.
All of a sudden, Peter not having any suspicion at all of Parvati, which threw me off a little bit, but I don't know if that's how they really felt. And for some reason now, I don't know if I believe Peter, because I don't... There's just something not sitting with me right.
I have no idea why the plan all of a sudden turned into Parvati's absolutely not a traitor. Phaedra really is.
I'm just trying to make sense of all of this, and to be real, like, I can't trust Peter right now.
It's the first time I've seen him, like, step aside, have his own opinion, and stand up for himself. And I love that he's sharing it with MJ, who is going to be like, yeah, okay, I'll co-sign that. Let's get rid of Peter. So that's great. I love the fact that Kevin thinks he's close with MJ too, because I know that MJ is very close with Phaedra. I just want to see Phaedra get to the end. I don't know why. Maybe because she makes me laugh. In the kitchen, where Peter likes to have a lot of his conversations with one-on-one, he's in there with Kate. He's like, oh, come in here, let's talk.
You just lied to a table full of faithfuls about somebody being not a traitor when you definitely knew they were a traitor.
We're not faithful to a traitor.
Well,
she was gone tomorrow night. Do you believe anything that I was saying? I was
still
gassing
don't.
up the entire day.
And He tries to schmooze Kate, and Kate is not having it. I love her.
As far as I'm concerned, Peter is a traitor to the Faithfuls because he lied. And I just don't like playing the game with them. He's just so annoying.
Kate is suspicious of Peter, and she comes right out and tells him to his face.
Listen, I'm not saying Phaedra's not a traitor. I'm saying I knew you were doing shady shit.
And I love how she says, Peter might not be a traitor, but he's a traitor to the Faithfuls. It's a good line. So true. Because of what he did at the round table that day and how he switched everything. I don't have to explain it all to you. Then in another side room, we have a conversation with Sandra, and Sandra's getting suspicious of Peter. I love that because she was suspicious of Peter, and then she started not being suspicious of Peter, and now we're going back to be suspicious of Peter again, so I'm happy about that. So Phaedra, the lone traitor, goes to the turret by herself that evening. Ellen comes in, and as we expect, as at what happened last time, when a traitor went, you have the opportunity to recruit another traitor. Only there's a twist this time. Love me some twists.
You must select one faithful and offer them an ultimatum.
You will ask them a very simple question. Join you
or die.
This is a good twist. I'm thinking her choices are going to be, do I kill Peter or do I recruit Kate? Because they had that discussion before when they were going through everything, and Kate and Phaedra said Kate would be a good traitor. And the reason I thought that she would recruit Kate also, she could probably recruit MJ or Sheree. They may have accepted it too. I don't think anyone in Peter's group would accept it. Once they saw Peter turn it down, if he really did, I don't think they would accept it either. So her choices are limited, but she's always said Kate would make a great traitor, and she would. But Ellen gives different instructions tonight. She now has to pick somebody to ask to be a traitor. But she's not just going to ask them to be a traitor. She's going to give them an ultimatum. Be a traitor or die.
You must either take the cloak and turn to the dark side, or they will be murdered.
Now, this would be the time that they should recruit Peter, because he'd be out of the game otherwise. And I bet they thought that's what she was going to do. That's what I thought she was going to do too. Be a traitor or die. Well, he can't. Whoever gets offered the opportunity to be a traitor has to accept being a traitor, or they're out of the game. Peter wants to get to the end. I thought it would have been really good to recruit him as a traitor, even though I don't want to see him going further in the game. But it would be interesting to see how he would handle it with everybody. But she didn't. She told Alan, I want to recruit Kate. Still, I think a good choice. I think Peter would have been much more interesting to watch. So Kate gets a letter. She thinks she's getting killed. It says, go to the dungeon. This is where Phaedra was going to meet her and give her the ultimatum. She goes down to the dungeon.
Dungeon? This is not good. No. Look at this. I hate this place. Fergus, I don't really understand what I did wrong. Will you bring me champagne?
Fergus locks her in the dungeon. She doesn't know why she's stuck in the dungeon. She's like, I haven't done anything wrong. Why am I down here in the dungeon?
Fergus? What is going on? Fergus!
And that's the end of the show. So the next one's going to open up with Phaedra coming down, seeing her in the dungeon and saying, would you like to come out? These are your choices. Kate's going to be all over it. Kate has said from the beginning she was upset that she wasn't a traitor to begin with. She wanted to be a traitor. So getting offered the opportunity, she wants to wear the cloak and see the turret. Plus, she's got an evil mind. So I'm really looking forward to episode 9 on Thursday night. Aren't you? This is so good. Why is everybody not following this channel? This is good stuff, people. Everybody needs to be watching this show. All right. Share this with everybody you know. that's on YouTube, whether they watch it or not. Get them to subscribe to my channel. Help this grow so that when there's another season of The Traitors, I actually review it again. Because if the numbers are so low, I'm not going to take the time to do it. But there's no way I'm not finishing this season. I'm finishing it out for sure. Let's get some more Vanderpump Rules and Traitor people over onto this channel. Thanks a bunch for helping me out. And if you're new to my channel, do me a favor. Please hit subscribe and like and leave me a comment, even if you just say hello. On this channel, I'll be sure to write you back. On my other channel, I read them all for sure, but I can't get back to everybody. On this channel, I write back everybody. All right, until next week. Goodbye.